What is up, homies? My name is Felix and I'm here back again with another video for you all today. And today I'm going to be showing you guys some free alternatives to popular plugins that you may or may not have heard about because everybody talks about them all the time. The free plugin alternatives that I'm going to show you guys today are not going to be like absolutely perfect replacements for the more popular, super expensive plugins, but most of them are going to be pretty much good enough to where you don't have to sell a kidney to get a super expensive plugin, and you'll basically be able to do the same thing that the more expensive plugin does. So make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I've produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you guys want to. And now I'm going to show you guys how to not spend $7 million on plugins. So you might notice that I'm showing you guys all of these VSTs while using FL Studio. These plugins will work with any DAW or music making program out there, so it doesn't really matter. So the first really popular plugin that I'm going to show you guys an alternative for is RC20. So I know everybody's heard about RC20. It's the thing you put on your melodies. It makes them sound lo-fi. It makes them sound all nice. It gives them some character, but I'm going to show you guys how to get that same effect without spending $100. So a really amazing alternative to RC20 is Izotope Vinyl, which most of you have probably heard about if you know anything about like free plugins, but Izotope Vinyl is really cool. I have the old version. I think there's a new version of it, but it does the exact same thing. Basically in Izotope Vinyl you have all the same features that you do in RC20 except for like a couple, and I'm going to show you a couple ways to substitute out those sounds as well. So in RC20 there's this little noise knob and this thing where you can select what type of vinyl noise or tape noise or whatever you want to add. In Izotope Vinyl you can do the exact same thing here. You can turn up the mechanical noise and you can turn up the electrical noise. And then in RC20 you have this wobble knob here. In Izotope Vinyl it's this warp depth thing, and you can also change the shape of the warp that you want. And then also there's this distort knob in RC20 which you can replicate by turning up this wear knob, and then there's also another way that you can replicate it, but I'll show you that when I show you the other ways to replace the things in RC20. This digital thing is something that I'm going to show you an extra alternative plugin for. This space thing, you can literally just add any reverb. I'd recommend the Valhalla Supermassive reverb. It's a reverb and a delay. Most of you have probably heard about it, but it's a really good reverb plugin. And then the magnetic knob here kind of goes hand in hand with the warp depth knob inside Izotope Vinyl. But yeah, so a couple ways that you can replicate the distort and digital tab in RC20 is first with the distort. So this one is like a tube amp kind of thing. One way you can probably replicate it is by adding some sort of amp sim plugin. However, you can also do that with any sort of saturation plugin. So a plugin that I like for that is this Tube VST, which will replicate the same thing as like a tube amp kind of a vibe going on. So that's the distort tab. And now for the digital one, this is basically a bit crusher. There's a bunch of free bit crushers out there, but here's a couple that I've used and I've used on quite a few beats. The first one is called D-Blue Crusher. It has basically all the knobs that you would expect there to be on a bit crusher. You can change the bit depth, the sample reduction, blah, blah, blah. Another one that I like is called MDA Degrade. This one is really nice. It also adds a little bit of a different texture and a different like character to your sound. I think it actually makes it a lot more mono, so you might want to be wary of that when you're using it. But however, I like this plugin a lot, and this is probably one of my favorite effects VSTs. And then also, last but not least, is the Tau Bit Crusher VST, which has all the same effects and everything, and it actually has a few presets, which is pretty cool. Alright, so the next popular VST that I'm going to show you guys an alternative for is called Effectrix. I'm sure some of you have heard of it before. It's kind of a hard plugin to describe what it does, but it basically just has a bunch of different effects that you can add in certain sections of your melody or whatever, and it's actually pretty surprising that there's a really good alternative for it. So the free alternative is called D-Blue Glitch. This is version 1.3, so each different color block thing is a different effect, and each one of these individual things has their own knobs and parameters and all that different type of stuff. And then also you can click here on these little boxes and click in where you want those effects to play, which is actually really dope. And the white one actually is random, so if you want it to just be a random effect, you can totally do that. In FL Studio, you can go up here to randomize, and it'll just give you a completely different effect every time. I've used this on a couple different tracks, and it sounds really cool if you're going for more of like an experimental type sound. But yeah, if I had to guess the amount of combinations that you can come up with this VST, it would have to be in like the trillions or something. And this is basically the same kind of thing that Effectrix does. So the next popular plugin that we have a free replacement for is Autotune, you know, the one that everybody always uses. This plugin is not really going to be for everybody. Not really everybody needs Autotune. Some people just make beats and they don't do any mixing or recording of vocals or anything. But anyways, I would say that as far as Autotune plugins go, there's a lot of pretty good alternatives, and there's also a lot of pretty bad alternatives. It might be just an FL Studio thing, but I'm pretty sure that every DAW probably has some sort of like pitch correction plugin or something. The one in FL Studio is called Pitcher. I don't really like Pitcher very much. It doesn't work exceptionally well, but the free VST that I prefer is called Gralian 2. I don't exactly know how to say it, but it's really good and it's pretty easy to use. use. There's a bunch of different presets, so you can literally just click whatever key your song is in, and now you're pretty much good to go. The only other thing you could really mess around with is the smoothing knob, and if you bring the knob down, I'm pretty sure it makes it sound more wobbly and robotic, and if you bring it up, it makes it sound a lot smoother. Alright, so the next popular plugin that I'm going to show you guys a replacement for is called Serum. You guys have probably heard about it. It's one of the most popular VSTs out there. I would say that it's a little bit more for EDM producers. However, there is a lot of trap producers that use it as well. I personally don't have Serum, but however, the alternative that I know a lot of people say is a VST called Vital. However, I can't really give my full endorsement for Vital because be warned that every time that I've tried to use Vital, it does something like this where it fills my entire screen, and then when I try to move it, it just turns the screen black. And then also, thankfully for this video, it wants to work, but every other time that I've tried to use it, it's been like I can see my mouse on the screen. However, when I click something, it clicks like 6 inches away from where I'm actually clicking. I have never had this problem with any other plugin, so I don't know what the deal is. I realize I'm probably making the plugin look really bad, which is not what I'm trying to do. However, I'm just showing you guys that there is a possibility that it might not work so well. If you can get the plugin to work though, there is definitely some positives. One positive thing though is that I know there's a lot of free presets out there. There's people that make a bunch of free presets and, you know, post them on Reddit probably or somewhere, I don't even know. And then also there's a lot of different settings within there. There's different effects you can put on there, and people say it's a really amazing sound design VST, which is basically what Serum also is supposed to be, like a very good plugin for sound design. So this next one I'm actually really hyped about, and it's going to be an alternative for guitar rig. So obviously this one is going to be for more of the guitar players out there. However, it's not completely unheard of to put some, you know, amp simulation on your melodies and stuff to give it a more vintage feel. This one is also like a little bit like because Guitar Rig actually has a demo version that I think most people use, and they just use the demo version, record it, and then export it. However though, the free alternative is really, really good, and in my opinion, it gives you more options than you actually get in Guitar Rig. So the free alternative is a plugin called AmpliTube, and AmpliTube is a little bit of a weird situation too, because it's like there's a free version, but they give you almost like a demo version. But the things that you can do in AmpliTube are like 100 times better than in Guitar Rig because it's just so realistic and there's so many different features to mess around with, and I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. So you guys can't really see it, but I busted out the guitar here so that I can give you guys a proper example. So in the plugin, you have a bunch of different options for amp heads, cabinets, guitar pedals, microphones that you can adjust, and also like the room that you're in. It's really crazy. We can choose different amp heads. This is a cleaner amp. And then not to mention that all of these knobs on here are completely adjustable. So if we want to turn up the reverb to like 10 million, we can. Then if we click over here to the cabinet section, we can literally adjust where the microphones are positioned. So we can move them in, we can move this one out, we can move it up and down, we can make whatever adjustments we want, and then there's also different cabs that we can use too. But yeah, so there's not only that, but they also give you a couple different pedals that you can add too. So if you drag the pedals down here onto this little chain of wiring and stuff, you can add them, and then also you can turn them off and on with the button, and then you can adjust the different parameters as well. And then finally, the last main thing is that you can adjust the type of room that you're playing in as well. So you can change it to a small studio, a little amp closet thing. There's a couple different free ones. Some of them are off limits. I think like the Subway you can't get, but however, there's a bunch of these different normal ones that work perfectly fine and will suit any type of need that you have. So that's really just the main features. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do too. You can change the individual type of speakers that are here. You can also adjust all these different volume parameters, the panning, the way that the stuff is aligned will make a difference. Also, you can change the wiring. Tons of different stuff that I haven't even played around with it long enough to understand yet, but it's super awesome, super dope plugin. And there's also a tuner. Alright, so obviously the two big ones that everybody wants to know about are Keyscape and Omnisphere, and with both of these, I'm just going to talk about a few different plugins that you can kind of use instead of those two. However, if you want like really good replacements, you'll probably have to pay a little bit more money because Keyscape and Omnisphere, you're kind of getting what you pay for because they come with like a bajillion different presets, and you can get different expansion packs and all this type of stuff. But yeah, so for Keyscape, I'm just going to rattle through a few different piano plugins that you can use to kind of substitute the sounds. The first one is the Soft Piano from Labs by Spitfire Audio. Really really amazing piano sound, probably the best free one that you can get. Also, there's Room Piano, there's Creepy Piano, there's Keystone Classic, and then there's one called like Vercillion Upright Piano or something like that. And then there's also a demo version of a plugin called Addictive Keys, which gives you a really nice grand piano sound, and they have a bunch of different stuff that you can play around with in there. And I could probably go on and on about different free piano plugins that there are. I know Keyscape has some Rhodes and electric piano stuff in there. The one pretty good free VST for that I know of is called Sweet Case EP. But yeah, that's pretty much what I can recommend as far as different piano sounds go. And then as far as Omnisphere goes, it's kind of a tough one because it has like a bajillion different presets in it, and there's so many different sounds and ways that you can design your own sound and stuff. I'm gonna give you a couple really good free kind of synthesizer type plugins that you can use to kind of replace certain sounds and vibes from Omnisphere. The first one is a plugin called Zebralet, which I'm pretty sure is like a light version of a plugin called Zebra 2, and that one is really nice. There's also a plugin called Tyrell N6, which a lot of you have probably heard of. There's also a pretty good plugin called Alpha Free, which a lot of you have probably heard of as well. Definitely the first two just give you a lot of different sounds that you can use, a lot of different ways to play around with the sound and change different parameters, and there's lots of different presets and stuff that you can use as well. I was also debating mentioning a few other different plugins that you can buy instead of Omnisphere that are quite a bit cheaper. However, I could probably make like a 40-minute video in of itself about that, because that $500 that you'd spend on Omnisphere, you can get like 100 different plugins that'll give you the same amount of sounds, if not more, than you'd get from Omnisphere. Alright, so last but not least is an alternative to Izotope Ozone 9 or Izotope Ozone 5, as some of you might see Nick Mira and Internet Money people using, but Ozone 9 is the updated version of it. So there's a bunch of different features in Ozone, but the main thing that everybody uses it for is the loudness maximization type deal. So if you're using FL Studio, you can literally do the exact same thing with a limiter and a soft clipper. So you want to put a soft clipper near the bottom somewhere. You don't have to do anything to it, and then you want to go up here to your limiter, and then you're going to turn all this stuff down, and then you can turn the ceiling up. So now you can bring up the gain until right about when it starts to distort, and then once it starts to distort, just bring it back a little bit and keep it nice and clean. So as you can hear, it made my track way louder than it was before. But if you're not using FL Studio, there's a bunch of other different free alternatives that you can use as well. You're gonna just wanna search for some type of limiter, hard limiter type plugin. One plugin that I saw, which looks like it's pretty easy to use, it only has 2 knobs, it's called Loudmax. If you wanna check it out and see if that works for you, but like I said, there's a million other different limiter plugins out there that you can try and experiment with. So yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you guys have any more, popular plugin alternatives, or just any dope free plugins that you think not a lot of people know about. Comment down below, put everybody onto the sauce. And yeah, make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I've produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you guys would like to do that. And I will see you guys next time.
Cause you know that I'm official. Play with the signs and we put them on a t-shirt. All black.